I was just at the ENR Future Tech event, and it's funny to get to talk to you because there's like a lot of camera solutions coming out. And so I'm just really interested. I think one of the things that came out of that event was just how powerful video can be, how much data we can get from cameras. So this is exciting for me. But can you kind of just start maybe from the beginning? Like, how even did you start in construction? Very beginning? Like, do you have a background in construction?
Yeah, so my background is not in construction. My background is, I like to say, in nerd. So I grew up always focused on computers, programming, video games, computer graphics. I loved all that stuff. So when I was a teenager, I'm a self-taught programmer. And, I wrote my first video game when I was like 16, and I loved everything about computers and technology and the visual aspect of turning code into something you could see. And so when I went through my education, I went to college for computer science. I minored in computer graphics. And then I kind of got into systems administration, web hosting, internet technologies. And so I just kept following the trends of computer. Sort of where TrueLook came from, it was the culmination of all my skills prior to that point. It was a web-based platform. It was very visual, so I loved being able to display an image, save, interact, and do things with that image. So the graphics and that internet tech, and then it all worked really well because we have a hardware component, and I'm construction, everybody's super hands-on. I'm kind of handy in that I can follow a video and do something. I can repair a washing machine. I can build a deck. I can do all the things physical, not nearly to the level of people that are in the industry that are actual tradesmen, but like I'm smart enough to have the hands-on hardware side. So I loved, especially how TrueLook connects the software and hardware things that I'm into a solution that kind of like builds upon like all of my talents. And so that's sort of like how I got to TrueLook, just in a roundabout way. And the fact that all of these skills led us into a construction product is just a happy coincidence, kind of.
Yeah, I agree. I think construction is a great place to build tech right now because there's a big delta there. We need tech. We haven't innovated really, we haven't improved efficiency in 100 years, according to most people, while manufacturing is just getting way more efficient. And you made me think of something I already want to sidetrack because I just think of construction. I've been kind of a big video game person too. So to hear you talk about building video games in your youth, that's fun to me because I think construction is kind of one of the coolest real life video games. And I think maybe what you're doing and what other tech solutions are doing is creating video game elements to the construction industry. Do you agree? Like, is because I want to make it fun.
Yeah.
And I don't there's a game element to that.
Yeah, especially on the training side, I've seen and used a lot of AR and VR for training and safety. I've put the goggles on. I've been up on a girder looking down, 50 stories while standing on a trade show floor, like just spazzing out because it's just so realistic. And so that game element is a great way to teach people, what the reality is of a job site. And then all the tech you're going to start to wear, it adds that layer of gamification, of just awareness of what's going on around you. So I definitely love how consumer tech, wearables, AR, VR, those are all going to help people train, be safer, and then also efficiency on the job, just be more aware. These are all awesome things coming into the industry.
And I also heard that the company has shifted into cameras, from maybe robotics beforehand. But tell me about that shift. Like, what do you think is powerful about the camera?
Yeah, so the genesis of TrueLook is it was basically working on computer vision and connecting a camera to the internet, because I've been doing this for 20 years almost, which is a really long time. Tech has changed a lot and accelerated a lot over that time. So the genesis was all just about, here's a camera, what can it see? What can we do with vision? And then, hey, can we connect this to the internet? And way back, TrueLook was essentially a media and entertainment company when the internet was new, webcams were new, not a lot of people had them, and you had a major event like a NASA shuttle launch or a PGA, final. I'm not a sports guy. NBA Final Four. TrueLook cameras were at those events because in the early days, you wanted to connect people online, draw people to your website, get traffic. And TrueLook used to be on every continent, including Antarctica. We used to be on top of the Empire State Building. It was all that entertainment of let's get eyeballs to something that people normally couldn't see. And that was the media and entertainment, and it was very popular. And that's what sort of was the lifeblood of TrueLook in the beginning. And then as technology advanced and webcams became more and more available, a lot of this entertainment thing, people brought it in house. Like, oh, we have the ability to do it ourselves. We can control our content. So that part of TrueLook, was slowly being absorbed by the people who needed TrueLook originally. But the one thing that we saw was there was an industry that loved all the things about TrueLook, getting people to see what's happening, a way for people that aren't there to view what's going on, and that was construction. And so as, the classic media and entertainment sort of started to go away, the core that remained was construction. And, we looked at it and we said, hey, there's something here. And what construction really loved was being able to see the job, even though it was, super poor resolution, way back CRT TV, just hideous looking quality. But, people from all around the world could look at the job site and do what they need to do, collaborate. And then the time lapse feature that was very easy. We were obviously taking a picture and delivering it to the masses, and that was a time lapse. And so those little things that remained were the nugget of what got us to become a leader in construction camera technology today.
I love that because like part of my mission in this podcast is kind of to tell the story of construction, and I think some of that needs to be done with cameras, and I think if you look at a construction site, a lot of times you'll see kids peeking over the fence, you'll see old guys wanting to watch the crane pick, and I just think there's something underappreciated about construction, and I think if we kind of show it to the world, people will love it a little bit more. And I think people see it as a dirty and chaotic industry where people are in conflict all the time. So I wonder if that's something you're seeing, is like we're actually starting to tell the story about construction, and an interesting one that people want to learn more about.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Basically, if you look at a time lapse of a project, 5 years of effort in 30 to 60 seconds, you really can't appreciate what's going on to make that happen. But it's a wonderful story to watch and see dirt, to an amazing structure. And obviously, I have an appreciation, you do as well, for all the work that goes into it. And outsiders, I guess, people who aren't living and breathing construction don't know all the work that goes into it, the blood, sweat, and tears, the slim margins, the level of coordination, cooperation. And definitely a camera introduces, this voyeuristic, I can see what's happening. I can see this huge crane. Look at that bulldozer. It gets you definitely engaged. And so a lot of people will use TrueLook for public engagement, for marketing, to create awareness about what's happening. There's a lot you can do to get more engagement, both from people involved in the project, involved in the industry, as well as those around it. And especially even if you think about other stakeholders, just like the bank or, the owner, financiers, anybody who is remotely connected to the project, they may not see these things or think about them, but a camera suddenly gets them more engaged, gets them more involved, and it just makes for a better, experience and end result for everybody.
Yeah, you don't often think about all the stakeholders too. Those are ones I think about first, but I also think about later the community. And I just think a lot of times we do like fence off our projects because of the dangerous nature of what we do, and we kind of hide ourselves from the public. But I like this, like, hey, let's even get the community to be able to kind of watch some of what's going on. Go over for me too. I don't know all of the features you're offering, but I know security is a big part of it too. Can you talk about what kind of security features TrueLook is providing?
Yeah, absolutely. So on our feature set, we started with time lapsing. Then as technology evolved, live video became an option, and then technology continues. And of course, now security is the one that everybody is super interested in. And so all of our cameras also feature security recording, basically 24/7. The camera's always recording everything in addition to time lapsing it, in addition to allowing you to view it live in real time. Those are the three core features. But with security, the camera's always recording. And if you have a theft, an accident, something cool happening, an amazing pour, a big equipment lift, that's all being recorded by the camera. Then we layer on top of that, you can get intelligent motion alerts. So if a person, a vehicle, or any motion is detected, you could get a notification if you want. So of course, you set those up for after hours. You know, nobody's supposed to be there. The camera will alert you and you can check it out and see if there's something going on. Then you can add another layer, which is human verification of those events that you're receiving. So say you're done with your job, you want to go to bed and not worry about it and have those notifications. We have an add-on service so that obviously someone else can watch those notifications for you. So clips will come from the camera when it detects something based upon, you know, parameters you define, schedule, and all those good things, regions of interest. That clip goes to our monitoring center. A professional reviews it. They make a determination, you know, is there a threat? Is there a crime? Are they robbing you blind? And then they will wake you up or dispatch police or both. You know, they'll take action. So you can sort of pick the level of security you want. And what we see a lot now is everybody wants, you know, someone to protect their site. So there's a fence, there's not a fence. There's a guard, there's not a guard, but now it's pretty common to have a camera and then someone responding to what the camera sees. And so, you know, every day, not every day, but often I'll just say, we do have an arrest that was triggered by a TrueLook camera. It's usually you just have generic trespassing. Sometimes there's vandalism. And then, you know, every now and then there's theft from just basic materials, someone breaking into a container and taking stuff out. We've seen people trying to drag entire job trailers off the site. They'll just come and hook up a big truck to it and try and drag it away, stealing heavy equipment. So that's another value of having a camera, in addition to all the benefits of improving job efficiency and engagement and documentation and accountability and transparency. There's, of course, security. And when you have a camera, and, you know, if you catch someone, if you don't catch them, it helps with all the other intangibles like the paperwork, the insurance claims, the fact that you're behind schedule now. And you have all this additional evidence that the camera helps you to just kind of move forward a little better than if you had nothing. So security is definitely in demand. You know, strange times, construction theft is obviously on the rise, material costs, all those good things. So it's definitely what a lot of people call us looking for, but they're shocked to know that actually TrueLook offers so much more than just a security camera. Our motto is total job site visibility. And that is, you can see your job, you know, it's visible to you, you can see it during the day. And then of course, it's also watched for you, you know, after hours. So we're just more than security. But of course, these days, I feel like that's what a lot of people are interested in.
You made me think about a funny thing. We don't need to talk about it, but just those, obviously the stopping the crime is great and seeing theft is horrible, but some of that stuff is just funny. And I wonder, you know, Ring Camera has those, like, you'll see the funny Ring videos. I bet you've got a lot of funny things happening on construction sites that you've captured. I wonder if someday you should put some of that out as a humor piece, but
The best of TrueLook, yes.
yes.
Yeah, of course, you know, awesome stuff we share internally. Obviously, client data, data privacy, all that kind of stuff matters. You know, we do have some pretty funny arrests, people climbing over fences and getting stuck. We've got a whole blooper reel of animals doing weird things on camera. So yeah, one day maybe, but obviously some things are being built, so they're very private. There's many ways that people collect data now, and data privacy is a huge concern. And, you know, we do everything possible to have very robust security and data policies. That's all well publicized. But yeah, I would love to just be like, this is funny and broadcast it to the world. Because ultimately, I'm a goofball and I just like laughing more than working. So
Same.
I would be all for it.
Beautiful. Being in this space for so long, it seems like TrueLook's been around since cameras became valuable to, like you were saying, provide visibility. But I bet you've had to innovate in a bunch of different waves, and I bet you've had to kind of figure out how to be ahead of the curve at times. Sometimes you don't want to be on the bleeding edge. I know just a lot of people in our industry are trying to figure this tech thing out. Hard do we innovate? How much money do we spend on trying to be ahead of it? You guys have stayed at the forefront of this. How do you do that? How do you decide, like, we really need to dig into R&D? How have you stayed up there at the top?
Yeah, it's challenging to know what's around the corner that you have to plan for. A lot of our development and what we've released is from customer feedback. The people who use TrueLook are the ones that we rely on to tell us what's the next thing. And our business is double hard, I'll say, in that because we have a hardware and a software path. So we have to innovate on the hardware side and we have to innovate on the software side. So software is easy. That's my background. It's simple to fix. It's simple to add new things to. If something available comes out, it's easy to add it in. Obviously, AI is a whole subset of the software path. But with hardware, it's a lot harder. It's slower to affect change. In the beginning, there was no cellular data. Solar power didn't exist. So TrueLook was really hard to do in the hardware sense. Is you had to get the camera, all this various equipment. You had to figure out power source. You had to get cable modem or DSL. You had to do all this manual configuration to make it work for your job. And then as cellular data, 3G and 4G came out, we saw these as ways to remove friction for us as a business. So we jumped on those right away because, back in the day, I'd be on the phone with like a project manager, talking them through how to port forward on their router and looking up the model they had and reading the manual and talking them through to get the camera online. And that was awful for me. But then, cellular data came out and I was like, this is what we have to do. So then we say, how do we put a cellular modem with a camera? And so we refine our hardware offering to incorporate that. Then of course 3G, 4G, now it's faster, better, easier, but people still had problems with power. So solar technology started coming out and that started getting better. So, again, I was like, ugh, this is awful for me to deal with. So it's got to be awful for the person in the field. So, again, solar and power alternatives, I jumped all over that too, because in the hardware world, it makes sense because we're removing things that the end user has to do to make TrueLook go. And we're also removing things for myself and my team that are problems to deal with in order to, get the next customer online. So as those techs came out, it was awesome. And now TrueLook is hyper turnkey. I don't know if hyper is the right word, but basically everything you need just comes in a box and all you have to do is plug it in. Or if you need power, flip a breaker and connect the panel, or it all arrives on like a mobile trailer. So it's very, Amazon-esque. It just, you say, I want this. It shows up in a box delivered to you. You flip a couple of buttons and switches, and then it's up and online. And so with the evolution of hardware tech, it's become awesomely easy for both us to deliver a turnkey experience and for customers to get online with TrueLook. And then on the other path, there's software, which is my background. I've always loved it. So I'm excited to be like, what else can we do? We've got millions, billions of pictures. What can we do with them? What can we do under the hood? How can we broadcast more information to more people? Now we can stream video. How do we stream video? Let's implement that. Our customers say, oh, I wish it was being recorded. A camera comes out, with the ability to record. So we keep just listening, looking at friction, and then adding, the next thing that removes that pain point. So it's been a great journey. And, the new frontier is AI, because with the amount of media content we capture, the amount of data that's going to be generated on a job site today, tomorrow, from every other input source, there's just going to be so much data. How do you process it? How do you get value out of it? So that's kind of the next frontier, for the industry in general, as well as TrueLook.
In our industry, we know a lot about Procore and other big softwares. I think you guys are collaborating with them or integrating with them. How does that work? And what value does that give to your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So integration is key because obviously you don't want to log into 20 different tools to do your job. You just want to go to one place and work from there. And so integration with Procore, Autodesk, Drone Deploy, and others that we do basically makes it, if you have a platform of choice, you can, load your TrueLook camera in there. So you're working in Procore, you're working on an invoice, you can pull up the camera and just for whatever reason you need to, you could go back in the footage, you could verify that that sub was there. You could, if there's a delay on the schedule, you could go back and verify weather both visually and with the data we track for you. So putting all of the information that TrueLook captures into a platform you're using daily to do your job, whether you're on the job or, a stakeholder or in some other support role in the ecosystem of that project, it's all there for everybody to see. It goes back to that engagement and transparency. And then what we find is when you integrate and you add, your tool into another tool and it's all available in one place, is use of that tool goes up. So it's kind of a force multiplier. So in Procore, if you have your TrueLook camera, now suddenly you're spending more time in Procore. Instead of 4 hours a day, you're using it 5 hours a day. And if you only look at your TrueLook camera an hour a day, if you have it in Procore, suddenly you look at your TrueLook camera 2 hours a day. So the convergence of these tools also helps you use them more. And then, the value just sort of increases that way. So all these integrations work really well in solidifying kind of your engagement with that technology. It's a cool behavior hack sort of with, with the camera and the other platforms used in our industry.
Yeah, and are you guys investigating or using aerial solutions? Like, are you into drones? And the docked drone solution seems like it might cater to something like TrueLook. Do you have a plan to like, hey, you can also dock a TrueLook drone, and it will fly over once a week or whatever?
I would love that. When drones first came out, that's another technology that sort of came out and evolved into a monster that it is now. So when drones first came out, we bought our first drone. We crashed it on the first flight. It was awesome. It was $1,000 when drones came out, and we just crashed it. So that was a little traumatic. But total job site visibility. We're all about documentation, preserving your job for all the reasons you need to record it. Whether it's just, again, that transparency, accountability, having something to go back to. And drones are another layer from the sky. We're cameras on poles and trailers. Drones are obviously in the air, and there's tons of 360 solutions out there. So TrueLook have some drone capabilities in that we have a great partnership with an organization called Fly Guys. They fly all our missions for us. Customers will come to us and say, hey, I need a camera. Can you guys do drones too? And we handle that for them. Basically, it's a partnership. We have a partnership with Drone Deploy in that TrueLook is another integration that they have. So there's a lot of people out there who fly drones. They do drone platforms, take all the images, do photogrammetry, analysis, all that stuff. We don't do that. That's not our wheelhouse. So we're not going to build that. But where TrueLook works great with all these other organizations is we help create a good solution. So a partnership with Drone Deploy, Fly Guys, we're not going to do what they do because they do it way better, but we help create a complete capture of your site, or reality capture. So, they're getting it from the air, we're getting it from the exterior, the interior. All that can be combined into creating, a better capture of your job. And then, kind of the flip side is TrueLook, I'm not going to say is better than drones, but it's a great complement in that TrueLook is always watching, it's always recording 24/7, streaming, recording, documenting. Whereas drones are point in time, ground services are point in time. You can only walk or fly your job site, once a week. If you're lucky, once a day. If you're unlucky, once a month. So there's huge gaps in those technologies that don't give you a complete picture like TrueLook would, which is just running all the time. But things like drone in a boxes and, even like Spot, the Boston Robotics dog, they're becoming more and more automated. They're going to be on your job more. And I definitely see in the future, these things are going to be just as common as a worker on the site. They'll be side by side. They'll be everywhere. And so you're going to be able to increase the frequency of the capture and documentation and analysis those tools provide. But ultimately, nothing's going to beat a camera that's just there doing its job
100%. I agree with that. And I like that you know what you're good at and you're focused on it. I think that's great. And I think it's great to collaborate. I totally agree with you that, like, yeah, I kind of say 2 + 2 doesn't always equal 4. It can equal a lot more than that. But I wanted to get into, you were kind of mentioning AI and the future outlook. There's a lot of data in these cameras. What do you perceive as being next steps on the software side as you're thinking about how are we going to pull value out of these cameras?
Yeah. So this is the field of computer vision, which is fascinating. How do you see in a picture? How do you see in a video? So you can see. So there's two challenges actually. First is the seeing, identifying things, vehicles, people, all that good stuff. There's taking that another level, recognizing things that are, dangers, high fall or unsafe, whatever. So being able to see all that. Then there's the other side is you have all these things you see. What do you do with that information? There's the data crunching side. So obviously everybody wants AI. Everybody, needs AI, but those are the two things we have to solve for. So we have like people, vehicle counting, tracking. You can get all sorts of metrics, and it says, hey, your job is busy, between these times. That can translate to a heat map. You can start to plan, resources. You can do a lot of things with knowing the quantity of things going on your site. So you can measure and see, and then you can make predictions and analysis based upon, those kinds of counts. Then there's also how do you see something and react to it? Like your vest is back there. Obviously, PPE detection, hard hat, vest, gloves, safety is a huge concern. So we're working on training our own models on our own TrueLook cameras to provide the most accurate analysis, forewarning of safety violations, all that good stuff. So by looking at TrueLook images and training TrueLook computer vision, and then delivering TrueLook AI based upon that, we can provide like accurate, the most up to date, trained with as a new camera comes out, the model can learn to see with that camera. So it's exciting to sort of push computer vision with TrueLook cameras rather than relying on what's out there already. There's a lot of other solutions where you put your data into it and they may not sync up completely. We're working really hard to make sure the input and the output are in sync versus just, dumping something in to like ChatGPT and it does its best to tell you what you want. We're really working on can we see what we see, and then can we make something valuable come out the other end? So AI is the frontier. And then in the future, of course, there's going to be data, sensors, all sorts of other connected devices on a construction site. How do you correlate what they sense or see with the data we're seeing? So there's going to be a lot of data crunching. And the only way you can do that is with obviously some kind of AI that can sort of be taught to learn the trends and relationships. And the cool thing is we have 20 years of historical TrueLook data that we can test, we can back test against. And so when we create something, we say, hey, does this make sense? And I'll say, yeah, obviously I understand like this job, it was behind schedule because it was cloudy for 5 days. That just meant it started to rain, the weather pattern, like there's all these cool things you can start to do. And so that's kind of, the next chapter of software and technology, I think, in the industry and as it applies to TrueLook.
I'm passionate about this because I started my career in the niche of forensic construction management. So construction projects that had failed in some big way and somebody was suing somebody and we got to figure out who's to blame for how much money. And so I spent a good amount of time in the beginning of my career just seeing projects go south, and it was depressing, to be honest. And I just feel like what you're saying is just getting to the heart of like what I care about, why I started this podcast is like resolve conflict easier. And I just feel like people think of security cameras as something that could create conflict or catch somebody, like we don't want to be on camera. I really do see it differently, and I also care about privacy too in my personal life, especially. I don't know, this is like an interesting topic to me. Just I think transparency on a job site is going to solve a lot of conflict earlier. I also think you're going to get pushback about, I don't want a camera on my site. Just give me your thoughts.
Yeah. So back earlier in TrueLook's time span, there was a lot of resistance to cameras. They would often be vandalized, they would be unplugged, or it would be delivered and never installed because everybody was anti-camera. They thought it was a weapon to be used against them. I think definitely now in modern days, there's two things. There's one, people have a much lower expectation of privacy. unfortunately, just with everybody's got a camera in their pocket now and cameras are everywhere. And, we are becoming accustomed to broadcasting our lives. I'm not a social media guy, but a lot of other people are. So, just being on camera is becoming a normal human thing now. So there's a shifting mentality in what a camera means to me as an individual and the expectation of how it's going to be used. And then on a job site specifically, it used to just be it's out to get me, and now, like you said, it's here to help me. Especially, why something's going wrong. If someone can see that, stop it, prevent it, you have data alerting you to a potential problem, that's going to help everybody. So I think the mindset of both privacy and also the use case of the camera is sort of evolving as the tech evolves and becomes more common. I just think perceptions are shifting. Privacy is, something that is nice to have, but it just seems like it's slipping away as a society, kind of, just because of, as a side effect of just how common the expectation is that everything is filmed, documented, and broadcasted. So it's
Yeah,
interesting what tomorrow would look like.
I agree. I think about the construction site in the future, and part of me is like, hey guys, when you come on a construction site, you should assume like you're on camera at all times. I think that would help everybody just kind of think about like, we're on a job site, it's a dangerous place, like people watching me. I just wonder if we need to kind of enforce, like, hey, we're using this technology, these cameras, we're infringing on your privacy to protect you. And I hope we do kind of keep that the focus. Like, this is for prevention. It's not for, yeah, I mean, sometimes you want, like, I'm glad you guys are helping with arrests to get the criminals, but I also just want construction workers to see that camera and be like, oh, phew, like my family's glad that's there because I'm potentially not going to fall off a ladder or something, you know? So I think that's awesome. I wanted to talk to you about just company building, being at the top of a company culture. How do you think about hiring people, maybe especially in our industry? I don't know, what kinds of people do you like to have on your team, and how do you keep a cool culture in your company?
Yeah, that's been the hardest part of this journey is finding the right people and then empowering them to execute. So I'm super lucky that I've got a great team of people around me and supporting me. Everybody's invested in the vision, everybody's invested in the company. But again, back to the earlier days, we were very small. There was just a handful of us. We were all in the same office. Everything was easy, and we sort of ruled by committee. Everybody had a voice. It was a democratic process. We knew what we had to do and we did it. Startup-y in mentality, in execution, a lot of, just camaraderie, teamwork, a small, very special core group. As we grew, our needs grew, so we needed to find more and more people. And we were very unique in that, we needed people who could sell to construction. We needed people who are good at, electronics and manufacturing. We needed software. So now we had to find all these different kinds of people. And that's really hard to do. And then also to get those different kinds of people with different backgrounds to all be invested in on the same teams. It's definitely challenging to find a diverse group of people and bring them together. And one of the ways we just continue to do that is just positive culture, camaraderie, teamwork. It was hard, but every new hire just came in, drank the Kool-Aid. We tried to make it fun. We tried to do all the cool stuff. Like, I like to have fun, so why shouldn't we all have fun? And then as we got bigger and bigger, it had to get to the point where ruling by committee or democracy, everybody's opinion mattered, but we had to start making decisions. And so that's the hardest part in my role is, I have to make a decision and I listen to all the feedback and I'm like, they've got a really good point. I'm like, but I know this other thing about this part of the business. And I'm like, I appreciate your input. Here's my decision. You're not going to like it. And so that's the hardest part is we've changed from, we're a family, we all built this together, into now we're a team and I'm the captain of the team. And if I don't like the way the play is going, again, I'm not a sports guy, I'll call an audible, I'll put you on the bench, I'll bring the other person in, and just, we have to move forward with the new play. And then it's just on the other side of it, when I give a directive or I make a decision or someone tells me what we should do and I agree, I just go hands off. I say, I got you. sink or swim, go ahead and do it. And if it doesn't work out, we'll figure it out. So failure is acceptable. We have a whole trail of failures behind us, and we wouldn't have had any successes without those failures. So definitely, trusting others. I'm a control freak, and for the longest time, being involved in every single aspect of the business is a reflection of how I was a control freak. But now I'm much more comfortable. I've got awesome people leading each team, and I can just be hands off. I don't have to control anything. They can be the control freak. So it's been a long journey for me personally. And ultimately, I'm just really fortunate to have a great team of people who support me, because I couldn't, lead without them giving me rah-rahs as well. So it's nice.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would have told yourself back at the beginning of this journey specifically, like a big piece of advice, something you wish you had known right at the beginning?
Yeah, stock picks would have been good to broadcast backwards. It's hard. I think the one thing would be the failure part. I wanted everything to go right. I wanted everything to be perfect, and I wasn't okay with failure. So probably my advice would just be like, try more, fail more. Fail fast, fail cheap. I don't know. There's an
Yeah.
expression there somewhere, but to just kind of like be riskier. Maybe if we took a couple more risks, the business would be even bigger. I don't know. But I'm a conservative, safe, risk adverse kind of individual, especially as I get older. But, if we fail, so what? Like, let's try again. So probably just that, just, push the boundaries a little more, but, no regrets looking back. I think we've done a good job.
Yeah. I think so too. From the outside looking in, it looks like you have. But I agree with you completely. I have gotten that question a little bit in terms of podcasting, and my answer is always like, I wish I had just started yesterday. Like, just do it, don't stop. But I wanted to see if ChatGPT gave me a good lead here, and I don't even know, so I'm scared to ask. But are you a mountain biker?
Yes, I do like riding my mountain bike. I have a hardtail mountain bike. I like trail riding, greenway riding. I do like speed. So, downhill is fun. I don't do the crazy black diamond things, but, one of my hobbies and pastimes is camping. So I love anything outside nature, and mountain biking in the woods essentially is just the culmination of all of it. So I love it.
I
How about
wonder
you?
how, yeah, I like bikes. I just got an e-bike to be able to take my son in the little cabin, whatever you call that, cart thing behind me.
Pull
So I got
behind
an
or whatever.
e-bike,
Yeah.
yeah. And he's 2, so he just loves being on a bike. But I was just curious I wonder how ChatGPT figured that out. I bet you've posted, but does it affect your leadership style? Like, is there something about sports or your hobbies in general that kind of give you insight into your business life?
It's a good question. If I was going to make an analogy, I guess it would just be like, I do like mountain biking. I like the thrill of it, the speed, but, I wear a helmet. I don't do anything crazy. If I see something that's beyond my skill level, I avoid it. So, kind of like those same parallels are here at TrueLook now. It's like, make sure everything's safe. I don't want anybody to get hurt. We have a business with a lot of people, and it's their livelihood, and they have families. So we have to make smart decisions for the business, just like I would make a smart decision to not go down something risky. So maybe there's an analogy like that, but work-life balance is another way to look at it. We're very culture, it's important here, and making sure people aren't burning out. They take the time off. They go. We're flexible, so they can go and do what they need in their lives, and work-life balance is very important to me, so we make sure that that's important for everybody else as well.
Awesome. Really appreciated meeting you, Roger. If I'm ever in the area, I got to come by and see what TrueLook's doing out in North Carolina. But find him, or what do you want to tell people to do to get a hold of you or look into TrueLook? Is there a website?
Yeah, absolutely. So TrueLook.com, TRUE look.com, and we're on all the social channels. Give us a call, shoot us an email. We've got an awesome team that's ready to help.
Cool. Thanks.